I heard my little boy pounding on the glass, his tiny fists leaving faint prints on the smudged back door window. Outside, the laughter of cousins cut through the warm California evening like cruel bells. Kids darted across the yard, tag, shrieks, and sprinkler water sparkling under the golden sunset. But my son? He was inside. Alone. Locked in. And it wasn't an accident. Through the screen door, I saw my dad leaning down to my son's ear. My father's face, always a map of stern lines, was softer now, almost gentle. But the words he whispered weren't gentle at all. I caught just enough, carried on the breeze, to freeze my heart. Your father is. The rest of the sentence was swallowed by laughter outside. My son's eyes widened, his tiny mouth forming an "oh" of confusion and fear. I ran toward the patio, the sun dipping low behind the oaks. My feet felt heavy, like wading through wet cement. I yanked the sliding door, locked. My father turned, and in that fleeting moment before he straightened, his expression wasn't guilty. It wasn't ashamed. It was satisfied. Then he smiled. That's where everything began to unravel. My name is Melissa Carter, and until that summer evening, I believed my family's cracks were small enough to mend. I thought we were broken in the ordinary ways families break, arguments at Thanksgiving, old grudges that simmered but never boiled. I thought my dad was strict but safe. I thought the man I called my father loved me unconditionally. I was wrong. I should tell you about us before you judge me for what I did later. We were a small-town family from Modesto, California. My parents, Richard and Evelyn Carter, were high school sweethearts who married too young and too fast. Dad was a retired cop, respected, feared, the kind of man who believed rules kept the world from falling apart. Mom was softer, but she bent under his authority like a tree in the wind. I was their only child, their pride and disappointment rolled into one. By 28, I'd married Ethan, my college sweetheart. He was gentle, the kind of man who'd kneel to tie a kid's shoe, the kind who'd drive an hour to fix my mom's leaky faucet. We had our son, Noah, 5 years old, bright-eyed, and too trusting for a world like ours. When my parents invited us for the annual Carter family barbecue, I said yes, without hesitation. It was supposed to be ordinary. Beer coolers, ribs on the grill, cousins chasing fireflies. Instead, it became the night my father planted a bomb in my life with a whisper. It started small, little tensions. Dad had been colder with Ethan lately. He'd watch Ethan laugh with Noah and give this faint shake of his head, like Ethan's joy offended him. During dinner, he'd make jabs disguised as jokes. Some men are built for responsibility, Dad said once, carving brisket with unnecessary force. Others, well, some just play house. Ethan smiled, tight-lipped, but I caught the hurt in his eyes. That evening, the sun hung low like a copper coin. The kids begged to run through the sprinklers, and the adults drifted to lawn chairs with beers in hand. Ethan went inside to grab more plates. I stayed outside, chatting with my cousin Beth, when I noticed Noah was missing. Then I saw him, face pressed to the glass door, knocking softly, lips trembling. I stood, confused. Why was the door locked? Why was he inside? And then Dad leaned close, whispering. Noah's eyes widened like he'd seen a ghost. I sprinted. The locked door felt like a wall between worlds. I banged on the glass.
Dad.
Open the door. What are you doing? He hesitated, then slid it open with a casual shrug. Just keeping the boys safe. Kids can slip, you know. Sprinklers, wet grass. But Noah's trembling hands told a different story. Ethan returned, holding paper plates, confusion flashing across his face. What's going on? Ask your father-in-law, Dad said, voice even. Noah grabbed my leg and whispered. Grandpa said. He stopped, glancing at my dad. Fear clamped his small mouth shut. Grandpa said what? I asked, crouching down. Dad's jaw tightened. Some things are better left unsaid. The air seemed to thicken. The laughter outside grew distant, warped, like sound underwater. That night, after the barbecue ended, I tucked Noah into the guest bed. Ethan sat on the edge, rubbing Noah's back. "You're safe, buddy." Grandpa was just being Grandpa. But I saw it in Ethan's eyes. He didn't believe that either. When Noah finally slept, I stepped outside onto the porch. Dad was there, alone, beer bottle dangling from his fingers. The moonlight cut sharp shadows across his face. "Why?" I demanded, voice low so the others wouldn't hear. "What did you tell him?"
Dad didn't look at me.
"Melissa, you've been living a lie for 5 years. That boy deserves the truth." "What truth?" My throat felt dry. He turned then, eyes like flint. "That Ethan isn't his real father." The words were a punch to the gut. I staggered back, the porch boards creaking under my weight. "You're lying." But Dad's expression didn't waver. "Your father is," he let the sentence hang again, cruelly, "not the man you think he is." I opened my mouth to argue, but my mind flashed back to college. Those nights before Ethan and I were official, the brief, reckless fling I'd buried so deep I almost believed it hadn't happened. Dad knew. Somehow he knew. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell Ethan everything, but the timing was a blade poised above all of us. Instead, I forced a brittle laugh. "You're drunk." Dad stepped closer, voice low and cold. "Fix this before it destroys everyone. Or I will." Then he walked inside, leaving me under the cold glow of the porch light, my heart cracking open. Hours later, I found Ethan asleep beside Noah, their breaths rising and falling in sync. My chest tightened with love and guilt. I couldn't let Dad's poison undo everything. But as I watched them, I realized something horrifying. Dad wouldn't stop. And if the truth came out, it wouldn't just break Ethan. It would break Noah. I pressed my palms to my face, shaking. Outside, a car door slammed, Dad leaving. And in that sound, I heard a promise. This wasn't over. Somewhere in the dark, revenge began to take shape, not just for me, but for the family my father had decided to destroy. And when it came, it would be devastating. Ethan's voice cut through the dark like shattered glass. "Melissa, what the hell is this?" I woke to the sound of dresser drawers slamming. The guest room was dim, but I could see him, standing over my open suitcase, shaking with rage. A single piece of paper trembled in his hand, a faded photo I thought I'd hidden years ago. The photo of Jason Monroe, the man I'd once loved, the man I'd almost married before Ethan. Jason, holding me close at a college tailgate, his grin careless and familiar. It wasn't just the photo. It was the note on the back. If things were different, it would always be us. "Where did you get that?" My voice was a rasp. "Your dad," Ethan spat. He handed it to me like it was a wedding gift. My chest burned. "Ethan, it's not what you think." "Not what I think." His laugh was bitter, a stranger's laugh. "Your dad tells me I'm raising another man's kid, then hands me this?" Noah stirred in the next room. I lowered my voice. "Please. Not here. Not now." But Ethan wasn't listening. His world was collapsing, and I could see the exact moment he realized he wasn't just angry at me, he was humiliated. By sunrise, the house was silent except for Noah's sleepy humming as he built Legos in the living room. Ethan avoided my eyes. Mom hovered in the kitchen, her hands shaking as she buttered toast she didn't intend to eat. Dad was nowhere. The emptiness he left was worse than his presence. It meant he was out there, pulling strings, setting fire to the life I'd built. I knelt beside Noah. "Buddy, did Grandpa say anything else to you?" Noah's fingers froze mid-build. His big brown eyes flicked to mine. "He said Daddy might not be Daddy." His lip quivered. "Is he?" I swallowed hard. "Daddy is the man who loves you. That's what matters." It wasn't enough. Even at 5, Noah could sense the weight of secrets. We packed early and drove back to Sacramento in brittle silence. Ethan stared out the window, jaw tight. Every mile felt like another inch of distance between us. Halfway home, he finally spoke. "How long were you going to keep this from me?" "I didn't even know for sure," I whispered. "Jason and it was before us. I took the test when I was pregnant." "And you lied." I chose the man who showed up for me, I said, voice cracking. The man who wanted to be here. That's you. He didn't respond. That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Unknown. Tell him the truth, or I will. I knew who it was.
Dad.
My fingers trembled as I typed back. Me. Leave us alone. Unknown. Fix it. Or the next barbecue won't be so friendly. 2 days later, Jason Monroe himself called. I hadn't spoken to him in 7 years. Melissa? His voice was smooth, familiar, and dangerous. Your dad stopped by my shop. Said we needed to talk. My blood ran cold. What did he tell you? That I have a 5-year-old son. The floor seemed to tilt. Jason, He cut me off. Don't bother. If he's mine, I'm coming for him. The line went dead. I found Dad at his house that night, the porch light flickering like a bad omen. He opened the door, beer in hand, face calm, as if he hadn't just detonated my life. You're drunk on control, I hissed. You've humiliated Ethan. You've dragged Jason into this. Why? He stepped closer, his voice low but sharp. Because you lied. Because you've built a castle on sand, and Noah deserves better. Better? I spat. You mean your version of better. You've always hated Ethan because he isn't you. Dad's eyes darkened. Ethan's weak. Jason's a man. I recoiled.
No.
Jason's a memory. Ethan's the father Noah knows. Dad set his beer on the railing, his movements deliberate. You can hate me now, but one day you'll thank me. I turned to leave, but his final words froze me on the steps. You're not the only one with secrets, Melissa. When I got home, Ethan's car was gone. His side of the closet empty. Panic rose like bile. Then I saw it, a crumpled envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was a single sentence, scrawled in his careful handwriting. I need time. Don't call me. My knees buckled. The silence of the house was suffocating. Noah slept upstairs, unaware that his world was splintering. I thought about Jason, about Dad, about Ethan's hollow eyes. I thought about the years I'd spent believing my choices were buried safely under time. But Dad had unearthed everything. And in the darkness of that empty kitchen, something inside me hardened. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to make sure my father never controlled another life again. The next morning, Jason showed up on my doorstep. He looked almost exactly as he had in college. Broad shoulders, easy smile, eyes that once made me reckless. But now, the smile was gone. We need a DNA test, he said, skipping hello. Noah's not a prize to fight over, I shot back. Jason's gaze softened. If he's mine, I deserve to know him. And if he's not, I asked.
His jaw tightened.
Then you and Ethan can keep your happy family. But if he is, Melissa, I'm not walking away again. That evening, after Noah was asleep, I sat alone in the living room, the shadows stretching long across the walls. My mind replayed Dad's whisper over and over. Your father is... He wasn't just talking about Ethan. He was talking about himself, too. Dad had always been a master manipulator, a man who believed his control was love. But this time he'd gone too far. The phone buzzed again, a message from Ethan. Ethan, I'm staying at Beth's. Don't let your dad near Noah. A crash sounded outside, metal against metal. I ran to the window and saw it. Dad's truck, parked across the street. He stood beside it, talking to someone in the shadows. Then headlights flared, Jason's car pulling away from the curb. My father wasn't just meddling. He was orchestrating. And in that moment, a cold, clear thought slid into my mind. If Dad wanted a war, I'd give him one. That thought echoed in my head long after the glow of Jason's taillights disappeared. But fury wasn't enough, I needed answers. Dad's hatred wasn't just about Ethan or Jason. It was sharper, deeper, personal. By midnight, I was back on the road, Noah asleep in the back seat. I didn't have a plan, just a gnawing need to understand why the man who taught me to ride a bike, who held my hand at Mom's funeral when I was 15, could slice through my life without blinking. I pulled into my parents' dark driveway and parked a block away. The porch light was off, but through the blinds I saw movement. Dad's silhouette at the dining table, hunched over a shoebox. I crept closer, heart hammering. Through a crack in the blinds, I saw him lift an envelope. Inside were photos, grainy prints, old and yellowed. He lingered on one, Mom, young and radiant, standing beside a man who wasn't him. The man was Jason's father. My breath caught. I remembered Jason once mentioning his dad, a local contractor, who'd vanished when Jason was a kid. But why would Mom have a photo with him? Then Dad spoke, low, bitter, like confessing to the empty room. She chose him first. The pieces clicked. My mother, before Dad, had been with Jason's father. Maybe it wasn't just my fling with Jason that enraged Dad. Maybe I'd unknowingly reopened an old wound, proof that history repeats, that Mom's first love had returned in the form of Jason. The floor creaked. Dad's head snapped up. He came to the window, yanking the blinds. I stumbled back, caught. The door flew open. Melissa.
His voice was a whip.
Spying now. I'm trying to understand why you're doing this. I hissed. Why are you destroying my family? He stepped onto the porch, face flushed. Because your choices dishonor this family the way your mother did. She broke me once. I won't let you. She didn't break you. I shot back. You broke yourself holding onto a grudge so old it turned you into a stranger. His hand tightened on the railing. You don't know what betrayal feels like until you've been humiliated by the person you built your world around. She begged me to take her back after she cheated. And I did. But every time I saw her smile at you, I saw him. And now you've dragged his son back into our bloodline. The wind rustled the trees, whispering through the oaks. The revelation was a blade in my chest. Jason wasn't just an ex. He was the echo of Mom's past. That's why you hate Ethan, I said quietly. Because he's gentle. Because he's not you. Dad's lips thinned. Because weakness invites betrayal. I drove home shaking, rage and heartbreak tangling inside me. Dad's vendetta wasn't about Noah's paternity. It was about his pride, about decades of bitterness he'd never let die. And he'd rather scorch the earth than let me live free of his ghosts. Jason's name lit up my phone. I ignored it. Then Ethan's name appeared. Just a text. Ethan, did he tell you why? I typed back. Me, because of Mom. And Jason's father. He's obsessed. No response. I looked at Noah, asleep in the back seat, thumb tucked under his chin. Dad's revenge was infecting my son's world now. That's when my anger crystallized into something sharper. Resolve. The next morning, I stood on Jason's porch. He opened the door, hair messy, eyes red. Melissa. You need to hear this, I interrupted. I told him everything. The photo, Mom's affair, Dad's grudge.
His jaw slackened.
My dad and your mom? Jason whispered. So all this isn't about you, I said. It's about Dad and his need to control the narrative. Jason cursed under his breath. That bastard. He paced the living room, fury flickering in his eyes. He ruined my family once. My dad disappeared after that affair. If your father's the reason, he stopped, fists clenched. Jason, I warned, sensing the same storm building in him. Don't let him bait you. But his voice was tight steel. I'm not letting him. I'm ending this. Later that day, Ethan returned. His face was drawn, exhaustion carving new lines. I've been thinking, he said quietly. I love Noah like he's my own. But if Jason's his biological father, his voice cracked. I need to know. I nodded, tears slipping free. We'll do the test. Ethan looked past me to Noah, who was humming to himself on the rug. But Melissa, this doesn't fix what you hid from me. I know, I whispered. But maybe we can survive it. If we fight together. His eyes flickered. Pain, doubt, love, all tangled. But before he could respond, a knock rattled the door. I opened it to find an envelope on the porch. No name, no return address. Inside was a single photograph. Noah at the barbecue, nose pressed to the glass door, looking abandoned. On the back, scrawled in my father's unmistakable handwriting. A boy should know the truth before it's too late. That night, as I watched Noah sleep, anger boiled hotter than grief. Dad wasn't stopping, he was escalating. And if he thought he could rewrite our lives out of spite, he underestimated the woman he raised. I thought of Mom, of the nights I heard her crying behind closed doors. I thought of Ethan's quiet heartbreak, of Jason's trembling voice. And I thought of Noah, sweet, innocent Noah, caught in a war he didn't start. Dad wanted revenge for the past. I would give him a different kind of revenge, one that wouldn't just wound his pride. One that would leave him facing the same helplessness he'd inflicted on all of us. As the clock ticked toward midnight, I drafted a message to both Ethan and Jason. I know how to end this. But it won't be clean. My hands shook as I hit send. Somewhere out there, Dad believed he still held the upper hand. But for the first time since that whisper on the patio, I felt the ground shift beneath him. Because now, I wasn't just Melissa Carter, the obedient daughter who swallowed secrets to keep the peace. I was the storm he never saw coming. The plan wasn't perfect, just desperate. But desperation has teeth. I stared at the group text, Ethan's cautious reply, Jason's fiery agreement. Two men who'd never spoken directly were suddenly allies, not out of trust, but necessity. Ethan, whatever you're thinking, it better not hurt Noah. Jason, I'm in. That man destroyed my dad. He doesn't get to ruin another kid. I typed back. Tomorrow night. My house. Be ready to listen before you act. The next day was ordinary on the surface. School drop-offs, work emails, neighbors waving as if my world wasn't smoldering. But under it all, dread coiled tight. Dad had pushed me into a corner. This wasn't just about secrets anymore. It was about control and taking it back. At 8:15 p.m., Ethan arrived first. He stood in the doorway, hands shoved into his hoodie, eyes scanning the room like it was foreign. I can't believe I'm here, he muttered. You love Noah, I said quietly. That's enough for now. Jason showed up minutes later, bringing tension with him. He and Ethan exchanged stiff nods, two planets orbiting the same sun but wary of collision. I locked the door behind us. Dad thinks he's the only one who can play dirty. We're going to prove him wrong. I opened a folder I'd spent the day compiling. Old family photos, copies of property records, Mom's journal entries I'd found buried in a cedar chest. One entry in particular made Ethan lean closer. June 12, 1993. Richard swore he forgave me, but I see it. The way he flinches when I laugh. The way he watches Melissa, like she's a threat. Sometimes I think he's stayed with me just to win. Jason's jaw flexed. He's been punishing people for 30 years. And now he's punishing Noah, I said. The idea was simple. Expose Dad before he could tighten his grip. But exposing him meant revealing Mom's affair, Jason's connection, and my own lie. It meant risking Ethan walking out for good. It meant shattering the image of the perfect Carter family Dad used to command respect in our small town. Ethan's voice was careful. You're talking about blowing up his reputation. Jason's tone was sharper. He blew up all of ours already. I looked between them. I'm done playing defense. Tomorrow, there's a town fundraiser at the fire hall. He'll be there. He never misses a chance to play the hero. We confront him publicly. He thrives on control. Let's take it. Ethan rubbed his temples. This is going to get ugly. Jason leaned forward.
Good.
The following evening, the fire hall buzzed with chatter and music. Strings of white lights looped overhead, and the smell of barbecue mingled with gasoline and sawdust from the volunteer trucks. Dad stood near the stage, shaking hands, smiling like he hadn't torn his family apart. I waited until he spotted us, me, Ethan, Jason, and Noah holding my hand. His smile faltered for just a second, but that second was enough. I stepped onto the small stage. Excuse me, everyone, can I have a moment? Heads turned. Dad's jaw tightened. Melissa not here. But I raised my voice. My father has always told you he values truth and family. Tonight, I'm holding him to that. The room hushed. This man, I gestured toward Dad, has spent weeks trying to destroy my marriage, my child's peace, and even another family's memory. All because decades ago, he couldn't forgive a mistake. My mother made a choice before I was even born, and he's been bleeding that wound into our lives ever since.
Gasps.
Murmurs. Dad stepped forward, voice low but venomous. You don't want to do this. Jason's voice boomed from the crowd. No, Richard. We need to do this. You drove my father away with your threats, didn't you? Dad's face darkened. Your father was a coward. Or maybe you made him one, Jason snapped. The room felt electric, tension snapping like live wires. Ethan stepped forward. You talk about loyalty, Richard, but you've humiliated your own grandson. He doesn't understand genetics or betrayal. He understands who tucks him in at night. And that's me. Dad's mask slipped for the first time, eyes wide, mouth opening and closing without words. He wasn't used to being challenged, certainly not by the man he'd dismissed as weak. I felt a surge of grim satisfaction, until Dad turned the tables. You want truth, he said, voice rising. Then tell them, Melissa. Tell Ethan you took a paternity test years ago, and didn't like the result. Every head swung toward me. Ethan's eyes searched mine, wounded. Melissa? The room blurred. My throat closed. Jason stepped forward, fists clenched. Don't do this to her. But Dad only smirked. She already did it to herself. I could have lied. I could have denied everything and run. Instead, I took Noah's hand and said, loud enough for all to hear, I took that test. And yes, it said Jason might be Noah's biological father. But Ethan is the man Noah calls Dad. That's a choice I made, and one I still stand by. Ethan flinched, the words slicing him even as they honored him. Jason looked torn, hopeful and heartbroken all at once. The crowd murmured, some sympathetic, others scandalized. Dad folded his arms, certain he'd regained control. But then a woman's voice rang out, from the back of the hall. Richard Carter, you don't get to play saint after what you did to me. Every head turned. Stepping forward was Maggie Reyes, a former dispatcher from Dad's precinct. Her eyes burned. You ruined my marriage, too, she said, voice steady. You threatened my husband when he found out about us. Don't pretend this is about morals. The room erupted. Whispers, gasps, shocked faces. Dad's face drained of color. Ethan, Jason, and I didn't wait for the fallout. We slipped out, Noah's small hand in mine. Outside, the night air was cool against my burning skin. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. But as we reached the parking lot, Ethan stopped. Melissa, I don't know if I can forgive you, but I can't let him keep hurting Noah. Jason nodded. This isn't over. He's not the type to take humiliation quietly. I looked back at the glowing hall, where Dad's world was unraveling. My heart thudded with a mix of triumph and dread. Because Jason was right. Dad had just been wounded, deeply, publicly. And Richard Carter wasn't a man who healed. He was a man who retaliated. The next morning felt deceptively calm, sunlight pouring through the blinds, birds outside chirping as if my father's reputation hadn't just been gutted in front of half the town. But calm as a liar. By noon, whispers spread through Modesto faster than wildfire. Richard Carter, decorated ex-cop, community hero, had been exposed as a hypocrite and a cheater. My phone buzzed nonstop. Neighbors, old friends, reporters sniffing for scandal. And then, a message that froze my blood. Unknown. You've humiliated me. Now I'll humiliate you. Watch your back. I didn't need to guess the sender. Jason came over first, his expression grim. I've been to his place. Truck's gone. Blinds shut. He's angry, Melissa, angrier than I've ever seen him. Ethan arrived an hour later. Though exhaustion lined his face, there was a steadiness to him now, a quiet determination. He looked at Jason, then at me. This isn't about us anymore, Ethan said. It's about protecting Noah. We agreed to stay under one roof for the night. Me, Ethan, Jason, and Noah. An uneasy alliance bound by necessity. Noah sensed the tension, but didn't understand. He just curled on the couch with his stuffed dinosaur, glancing between the three men like he was searching for anchors. That night, a storm rolled in, Wind rattling windows, branches scratching like claws. The TV murmured softly in the background, but every creak of the house set my nerves on edge. Around midnight, I found Ethan in the kitchen, staring out at the rain-slicked driveway. "You don't have to stay," I whispered.
"I do," he said.
"Not for you. For Noah." His words stung but steadied me. Jason appeared in the doorway, holding a baseball bat. Lights just flickered outside. "Someone's out there." We froze. Then, a sharp knock on the front door. 3 loud, deliberate raps. Ethan motioned for silence. Jason gripped the bat tighter. I crept to the window, pulling the curtain just enough to see. Dad stood in the downpour, soaked through, face shadowed beneath his hood. "Melissa," his voice thundered over the rain, "let's end this like a family." Jason muttered, "This guy has lost it." Dad stepped closer to the door, voice lowering to a deadly calm. "You think humiliating me fixes anything? You think airing our filth makes you righteous?" I opened the door just a crack. "You've done enough." His eyes were wild, but glinting with something almost desperate. "You think you're better? You've lied for 5 years. You've let that boy love a man who isn't his blood." Jason took a step forward. "Blood doesn't make a father, Richard. Love does." Dad's gaze snapped to him, burning. "Your father loved my wife. He ruined my marriage. And now his son is here to finish the job." Ethan's voice was quiet but sharp. "This isn't about your marriage anymore. It's about a little boy. You're hurting him." For a heartbeat, something flickered across Dad's face. Regret, maybe, but it vanished. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small envelope. "DNA test," he said coldly.
I pulled strings at the lab.
"Noah's mine to claim now." The room tilted. My breath caught. He tossed the envelope on the porch and turned, rain cascading off his hood. "Tomorrow, everyone will know. Court custody, you'll lose him." He disappeared into the storm, leaving the door swinging and the envelope bleeding rainwater on the porch. Inside, silence pressed in like a vice. Jason snatched the envelope and tore it open. The paper inside was smudged but legible. Probability of paternity, Jason Monroe, 99.4%. Jason exhaled sharply, pain flickering across his face. He was right. Ethan stepped back, hand over his mouth. His shoulders sagged as if the air had been punched out of him. I reached for him, but he recoiled, not with anger, but with heartbreak. Jason spoke first. "Melissa, he's going to use this to destroy you. Destroy all of us." I swallowed hard, tears blurring the words on the page. "Not if we destroy his power first." Ethan's head snapped up. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we stop playing by his rules," I said, voice shaking but resolute. "He's counting on us to fight each other, to tear ourselves apart while he plays savior to the town. But if we stand together, if we expose every rotten thing he's done, he loses leverage." Jason glanced toward the window, toward the storm beyond. "You're talking about total war." "Yes," I whispered. "Tomorrow, before he can spin this, we take everything from him, his reputation, his authority, the lie he hides behind." Ethan studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. "Then let's end this." But as the storm raged on, I couldn't shake the memory of Dad's eyes on the porch, a flash of something more than fury. Desperation, maybe. Or the kind of madness that doesn't stop until everything is ash. The power flickered, then died, plunging the house into darkness. Noah stirred upstairs. And outside, somewhere in the pounding rain, a truck engine roared to life. My stomach twisted. Dad wasn't retreating. He was moving to the next phase of his revenge. The storm had spent the night rattling our windows, but by dawn the sky was scrubbed clean, sharp blue, mocking in its brightness. I stood at the window, clutching my coffee like a lifeline, and waited. I knew my father. Humiliation wasn't the end for Richard Carter. It was just the spark before the wildfire. At 7:14 a.m., a police cruiser rolled slowly past our house, then another. Word travels fast in Modesto, especially when it's about a fallen cop. Jason and Ethan joined me in the living room, faces drawn and sleepless. Jason was the first to speak. He's not going to go to court. He's going to go scorched earth. Ethan looked toward the stairs, where Noah still slept. Then we need to be ready. The knock came at 9:03 a.m., 3 sharp raps, too precise to be a neighbor. I opened the door to find my father, impossibly composed. His rain-soaked jacket from last night was gone, replaced by a crisp button-down. He carried a small duffel bag and a manila folder. "Can we talk?" His voice was almost gentle. Jason stepped forward, but I held up a hand. "Outside." We walked to the driveway, sunlight glinting off puddles. Dad set the bag down between us. "You think you've won," he said quietly. "You think humiliating me erased the truth." "The truth?" My laugh was bitter. "The truth is you've let anger rot you from the inside out. You've destroyed Mom's memory, Jason's childhood, and now you're coming for Noah." He didn't flinch. "That boy is my bloodline's last chance to be right." "You don't get to decide what's right," I snapped. His jaw tightened. "Your mother begged me not to leave her after she cheated. I stayed. I raised you knowing you might not be mine. And then you," his voice cracked for the first time, "you go and repeat her betrayal with his son. Do you know what that does to a man?" The world went still. I swallowed hard. "Then why not forgive? Why not choose to break the cycle?" His gaze hardened. "Because forgiveness makes you weak. And weakness destroys families." He nudged the duffel with his boot. Inside are copies of that DNA test, statements from people I can sway, and a custody petition already signed. By tonight, the whole town will know you're unfit. Unless what? Unless you give Noah to Jason quietly. You and Ethan can slink off and pretend this never happened. I stared at the bag, then at the man who'd once been my hero. Something inside me, the part of me that still wanted his approval, died in that moment. I bent, unzipped the duffel, and pulled out the documents. Then I walked to the curb, opened the garbage bin, and dropped everything inside. Dad's face went white. "Melissa?" "No," I said, my voice steady now. "You don't own us anymore." The screen door creaked behind me. Ethan stepped out, Noah balanced sleepily on his hip, Jason just behind them. Noah's small voice broke the tension. "Grandpa?" Dad's shoulders sagged. For a heartbeat, the rage was gone. Just a broken man, staring at the grandson he'd almost destroyed. "Hey, champ," he said softly. Noah reached a tiny hand toward him, hesitated, then buried his face in Ethan's neck. The choice was quiet but deafening. Dad's breath hitched. He turned without another word, climbed into his truck, and drove away. 2 days later, the town was buzzing about Maggie Reyes's revelation, about Dad's disappearance from the fundraiser circuit, about the DNA test rumors. But inside our house, a fragile peace began to grow. Ethan and I sat on the porch, while Noah played in the yard. Jason leaned on the railing, watching quietly. Ethan finally broke the silence. "I don't know what tomorrow looks like, but Noah's my son. That doesn't change." Jason nodded. "And I'm not here to rip him away. I want to know him." I exhaled, tension I hadn't realized I'd been holding easing just a little. "Then we figure this out together. Not as enemies. As the 3 people who love him most." A week later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, but I recognized Dad's handwriting instantly. "Melissa, you won." Or maybe I lost the moment I let my pride outweigh my love. Don't mistake my silence for forgiveness. I'm not there yet. But I'm leaving town for a while. Maybe when I come back, I'll be a man Noah can reach for without flinching. I read it twice, then tucked it away, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder that even the strongest grudges can crumble. That evening, Noah asked if Grandpa would come to his birthday party. "Maybe someday," I said, pulling him into my lap. "But for now, you have Daddy and Jason and me. And we're not going anywhere." Outside, the sky turned the color of ripe peaches, and the first fireflies of summer began to blink in the yard. The storm had passed, but its echoes would linger, scars etched into memory, choices carved into the future. But as I watched Ethan chase Noah through the grass, Jason laughing as he joined, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Hope. Because revenge hadn't won. Not really. Love had. And sometimes, surviving the storm is the most powerful revenge of all.